I used to think my life was everything a person could dream of: a loving marriage, rewarding job, and a beautiful future to look forward to. But that dream turned out to be a nightmare in disguise, and it took one catastrophic accident for me to see the truth. My name is Sabrina Mitchell, and I am a 34-year-old architect who once built her life as meticulously as she designed skyscrapers. I lived in Portland, Oregon, with my husband of 7 years, Oliver Mitchell. To the outside world, we were the golden couple, a success story wrapped in luxury and ambition. But behind the perfect facade, deception festered like a wound. That deception revealed itself the night I left work late, drenched in rain, driving home after a long day. My phone buzzed with a message from Oliver: "Be home soon." The simple words made me smile. I was exhausted, the kind of tired that seeps into your bones after a long day, but knowing I'd soon be home brought comfort. Rain pounded on the windshield, the rhythmic sound merging with the steady hum of the engine as I navigated the wet, dark streets of Portland. Then I saw it, a pair of headlights appearing in my rearview mirror, growing closer and closer. At first, I brushed it off as just another impatient driver, but the car didn't back off. It accelerated, its lights glaring into my eyes. My pulse quickened as I changed lanes, hoping it would pass me, but it didn't. Suddenly, the car swerved and smashed into my rear bumper, sending a jolt through my body. My fingers tightened around the steering wheel, knuckles turning white as I fought to stay on the road. The tires skidded across the slick asphalt, and I gasped as the car behind me rammed into me again, harder this time. Panic exploded in my chest as I desperately tried to regain control. My heart raced as adrenaline coursed through me, every instinct screaming for survival. Another impact, this one violent and unforgiving, sent my car spinning out of control. The world blurred around me, headlights, streetlights, rain splattering across the windows. The deafening sound of screeching tires and crunching metal drowned out my screams. Then silence. The final collision struck like a hammer, slamming my head against the window. Pain exploded behind my eyes, and darkness closed in before I could even understand what had happened. When I woke up, I wasn't in my cozy bed or wrapped in Oliver's arms. I was in a hospital room, surrounded by the harsh beeping of machines and the smell of antiseptics. My body ached, and every breath was painful. I tried to speak, but the effort was too much. A nurse appeared by my side, her voice gentle yet distant. "You've been unconscious for over a month, Miss Mitchell," she said. "You're very lucky to be alive." I wasn't sure I felt lucky. At that moment, I just wanted to see Oliver, to feel his comforting presence. But when I asked for him, the nurse hesitated. My heart sank. "He hasn't visited you," she said softly, as if trying to cushion the blow. "Not once." Those words shattered something inside me, and that's when the real pain began. The nurse's words echoed in my mind, but I still held on to a sliver of hope. Maybe Oliver didn't know. Maybe something had prevented him from being here. But when the Dr. Joanna Peterson, entered the room, that hope quickly faded. She explained the severity of the accident: broken ribs, internal injuries, and a fractured leg. But the most dangerous injury had been the head trauma that left me in a coma for over a month. She called my survival a miracle, but I wasn't focused on that. I was still waiting for Oliver to walk through the door. He didn't. The next day, my assistant and closest friend, Natalie Brooks, visited me. Her face was a mix of relief and sadness. After hugging me gently, she sat beside my bed and lowered her voice. "There's something you need to know, Sabrina," she whispered. "Oliver's been different since the accident. He didn't tell anyone where you were. I only found out through a mutual friend." I stared at her, confusion and dread building inside me. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice weak. Natalie hesitated but eventually said it. "He's taken control of your bank accounts and your assets. He claimed it was to cover your medical expenses, but he's been spending a lot of money, Sabrina. And he's not alone." I blinked, trying to process her words. "Who's with him?" My voice trembled. "Her name is Vanessa Blake. She's a 27-year-old influencer on social media, and they've been traveling together. Miami, Paris, the Maldives, all with your money. The betrayal hit me harder than the car crash ever could. The man I had trusted with my life had abandoned me when I needed him most, and used my absence to live the life of luxury with another woman. My savings were gone, my properties sold, and the husband I thought loved me had disappeared into the shadows of deceit. Rage burned through my veins. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. Oliver thought I wouldn't survive. He thought he could erase me and build a new life with Vanessa using everything I had worked for. But he was wrong. I wasn't just going to recover, I was going to destroy him. I spent the following days lying in that hospital bed, but I wasn't just recovering, I was plotting. Every breath, every movement I forced through the pain was fueled by a single thought: make Oliver pay for what he had done. He had taken everything I had built, left me for dead, and expected me to stay down. But I would prove him wrong. My first call was to someone I trusted beyond measure, an old college friend and private investigator, Ethan Rivera. Ethan was known for uncovering secrets people thought would never see the light of day. I didn't hesitate when I told him everything: the accident, Oliver's betrayal, the stolen money, and his new life with Vanessa. Ethan's response was exactly what I needed. "We'll get him, Sabrina. I'll find everything he's tried to hide. Give me a couple of weeks." While Ethan began gathering evidence, I focused on my physical recovery. I forced myself to walk again, even when my legs threatened to give out. I did physical therapy with a ferocity that surprised even my doctors. Every painful stretch and every sleepless night only made me more determined. One evening, just as I managed to take my first steps without assistance, my phone buzzed with a message from Ethan. "I've got something big. Call me." My fingers trembled slightly as I dialed his number. "Sabrina, you're not going to believe this," Ethan said, his tone sharp and urgent. "Oliver didn't just empty your bank accounts. He's been forging your signature on documents, selling your properties, and taking out loans under your name." I felt my stomach twist. "How much has he stolen?" "Roughly $3 million, Ethan replied grimly. "And it's not just cash. He's already in the process of selling your beach house. The paperwork is nearly finalized. That house wasn't just another property, it was my sanctuary. I had bought it with the bonus from my biggest project." The thought of Oliver selling it was like a knife to my heart. "We need to stop him," I said through gritted teeth. Ethan chuckled. "Oh, we will. But we need to be patient. The more evidence we gather, the bigger the case we can build against him. When we hit him, we're hitting hard." Ethan's investigation intensified over the next 2 weeks. Each day, I received updates: photos of Oliver and Vanessa lounging at luxury resorts, copies of forged documents, and bank transfers proving he had drained my accounts. I had always known Oliver could be selfish, but what Ethan uncovered went beyond that. This was greed on a monstrous level. Then one evening, Ethan called with the final piece of the puzzle. "Oliver's about to finalize a business deal with some high-profile investors," he said. "It's a real estate deal worth millions. He's betting everything on it." I smirked. "Perfect. We'll ruin him where it hurts most, his reputation and finances." I called another trusted ally, my former mentor and legal powerhouse, Professor Regina Pierce. She agreed to help me draft an anonymous legal notice exposing Oliver's financial instability and fraudulent activities. We sent the notice to his investors the night before his big meeting. The next morning, Oliver arrived at the meeting expecting to secure millions of dollars. Instead, he was met with furious investors demanding answers. Ethan, discreetly stationed in the room, recorded the entire fiasco. The once confident man who had built his image on charm and deception was crumbling before their eyes. I wasn't done yet. Ruining Oliver's business reputation was only part of the plan. Vanessa Blake, the woman who had taken my place in his life and helped him drain my wealth, would face consequences too. She wasn't just an innocent bystander. Ethan had uncovered plenty of evidence showing that Vanessa had been complicit in Oliver's schemes. Emails, text messages, and receipts proved she had helped him forge documents and transfer funds into offshore accounts. With the evidence in hand, I made sure the authorities were notified. Within days, Vanessa's accounts were frozen, and she was under investigation for fraud and tax evasion. I watched as her curated social media life fell apart. The once flawless influencer posted a desperate video on Instagram, her makeup smeared as she sobbed. "This is a mistake. I didn't do anything wrong," she cried. "Please, someone help me." I couldn't help but smile. Vanessa's world was crashing down just like Oliver's, and no amount of fake tears would save her. While Vanessa dealt with the legal firestorm, I focused on reclaiming what was rightfully mine, starting with my mansion. Oliver had been living there with Vanessa, but not for long. I filed an eviction order, and within a few days, security showed up at the mansion with the paperwork. Oliver was given 1 hour to leave. I imagined the look on his face as he frantically packed his expensive suits and watches while security tossed his belongings onto the front lawn. When he finally called me, his voice was laced with panic and anger. "Sabrina, what the hell is going on? You can't do this." I chuckled, the sound cold and sharp. "Oh, but I can. This house was always mine, Oliver. And now, so is your fate." "You're making a mistake," he growled. "We can fix this." "No," I said firmly. "You made the mistake, and now you'll live with it." I hung up, picturing him standing outside in disbelief as his former life slipped through his fingers. But I wasn't finished. There was one final strike left to deliver. The next day, Ethan called with the news I had been waiting for. "Sabrina, you'll love this. Oliver's been arrested. One of the investors we exposed filed fraud charges this morning. The police picked him up outside a cheap motel." I exhaled, relief washing over me. Oliver, who had once strutted through high-end offices, was now sitting in a jail cell. The man who had believed himself untouchable was facing the consequences of his greed. Vanessa was nowhere to be found. As soon as Oliver's financial empire crumbled, she had abandoned him without a second thought. I wasn't surprised. She had always been a parasite, feeding off other people's success until there was nothing left. She tried contacting me once, sending a long, pitiful email begging for forgiveness. I didn't know what Oliver was doing. "Please, Sabrina, I'm just as much a victim as you." I didn't bother replying. I deleted the email without hesitation. She deserved everything coming her way. With Oliver behind bars and Vanessa's luxurious life crumbling, it was time for me to reclaim everything that had been taken from me. I worked closely with my legal team to reverse the damage Oliver had caused. My bank accounts were restored, and any properties or assets sold under false pretenses were returned to me. The process wasn't easy, but every victory felt like another step toward freedom. But reclaiming my financial stability wasn't enough. The experience had changed me. I no longer wanted to live the life I had before, blindly trusting people and burying myself in work without looking around. I needed something different, something meaningful. So, I made a life-altering decision. I would leave behind my career as an architect and start something new, a business that truly mattered. I founded a design consultancy that specialized in creating safe, affordable housing for women and families in need. I wanted to give back to those who had suffered, just like I had, and help them rebuild their lives. Every new project felt like a fresh start, a victory over the trauma Oliver had left behind. My days were no longer filled with dread or fear, but with purpose and hope. Even though I had moved on, I couldn't fully let go until I saw Oliver one last time. Ethan told me where he was staying, a rundown homeless shelter on the outskirts of Portland. His arrest and the fallout from the fraud charges had left him penniless, with no friends or family willing to help him. Vanessa had vanished, his investors had cut ties, and his name had become synonymous with betrayal. I stood outside the shelter, watching through the glass as people shuffled in and out. Then I saw him. He was slouched over a small table, staring at a plate of untouched food. His once pristine appearance was gone, his hair was greasy, and his clothes were wrinkled and stained. For a long moment, I just stood there, feeling nothing but quiet satisfaction. Then, as if sensing my presence, Oliver lifted his head and looked straight at me. His eyes widened, a mixture of shock and fear flashing across his face. I stepped inside. The smell of damp clothes and cheap soup filled the air, a stark contrast to the lavish restaurants Oliver once frequented. I walked straight to his table and sat across from him. He looked like he had seen a ghost. "Sabrina," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "You look terrible," I said, leaning back in my chair. He let out a bitter laugh, running a hand through his messy hair. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," I replied coldly. "I just wanted to see this for myself." His hands trembled as he rubbed them together, seeking warmth. "You won," he admitted. "You destroyed me." I tilted my head slightly. "I didn't destroy you, Oliver. You did that all on your own." He looked down at his hands, his shoulders sagging. "I lost everything. Vanessa's gone. My friends won't answer my calls. I have no job, no home. I don't know where to go." For the first time, he looked up, his eyes pleading. "Please, Sabrina. I made a mistake. I know I hurt you, but I have nothing left. Can't we fix this?" I laughed softly, shaking my head. "Fix this? You ruined everything, and now you want me to save you?" "I have no one else," he whispered. I leaned in, my voice low but firm. "You once told me I was too serious, that I needed to learn how to let go. Well, Oliver, consider this me letting go." I stood up and pulled my coat tighter around me. His eyes widened as he realized what I was saying. "Sabrina, please," he rasped. "I'll do anything." I met his gaze one last time, unaffected by his desperation. "You don't deserve forgiveness, Oliver. You deserve exactly what you have now, nothing." Without waiting for his response, I turned and walked out of the shelter. I didn't look back. As I stepped outside the shelter, the cold night air wrapped around me, but instead of shivering, I breathed it in deeply. It wasn't just cold, it was refreshing. It felt like freedom. For so long, I had been suffocated by Oliver's betrayal, weighed down by the pain and the rage. But now it was gone. He was gone. And with that realization, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Oliver Mitchell was no longer a part of my life. The man who had once stood beside me, claiming to be my partner, had betrayed me in the worst way possible. But I had survived. I had taken back what was mine, piece by piece, and ensured that he paid the price for his greed. The thought of him sitting in that shelter, desperate and defeated, didn't bring me sadness. It brought me closure. As I walked to my car, I allowed myself to reflect on how far I had come. The woman who had lain in that hospital bed, broken and betrayed, was not the same woman who now stood victorious. Back then, I had felt lost, as though my world had been ripped apart. But instead of letting that defeat consume me, I had rebuilt my life, stronger and more meaningful than before. The next morning, I returned to my new office with a renewed sense of purpose. Sunlight streamed through the windows as I stepped inside, the warmth a reminder that a new chapter had truly begun. This wasn't just an office, it was a symbol of my rebirth. My new design consultancy wasn't about chasing wealth or prestige. It was about creating something that mattered, something that would help others the way I had helped myself. I sat at my desk and opened my laptop, reviewing the list of projects waiting for me. Each one represented more than just work. They were opportunities to help others rebuild their lives, to give them hope where they might have thought there was none. My first project involved designing affordable, safe housing for single mothers, women who, like me, had been left to fend for themselves after betrayal. Helping them gave me a purpose far greater than any paycheck ever could. As the day went on, my phone buzzed with updates, partners confirming projects, clients expressing their gratitude, and Ethan sending a quick message to check in on me. I smiled. I wasn't alone anymore. I had built a new support system, one filled with people I could trust, people who believed in my vision and my strength. By the time evening arrived, I stood by the window of my office, looking out at the city lights. The skyline was beautiful, glowing with the promise of possibilities. For the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of the future. I wasn't looking over my shoulder, wondering when the next betrayal would come. I was in control of my life, and it was a life I had fought for. I thought about Oliver and Vanessa, but only for a moment. Vanessa had disappeared into the shadows, trying to rebuild her life away from the damage she had helped cause. And Oliver? He was exactly where he belonged, at the bottom, with no one to save him. I didn't need revenge anymore. I had already won. The best revenge wasn't destroying someone else. It was rebuilding myself into someone stronger, someone unstoppable. I whispered to myself as I turned off the office lights, I'm not just surviving anymore. I'm living. And with that, I left the office, ready to embrace whatever the future had in store for me. Thank you for listening to my story. If you enjoyed it and want to hear more, don't forget to like this video, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel for more exciting stories. Your support means everything to us, and we can't wait to bring you the next one. Stay tuned.